Remote Secure Access and SSL or Clientless VPN.
Hello everyone, welcome back to the Checkpoint Firewall training series. So followed by the previous session where we explained and understood the concept of VPN, we also did go through the different types, site to site, site to multi-site, and the concept of mesh. We also did explain the phases that are involved for the creation of all these different types, the IKE phase 1, IKE phase 2, policy creation, and infrastructure traffic. And in our case, we had 3 sites. We created a full mesh between the headquarters site and site 1 and HQ and site 2, and we also created another tunnel between site 1 and site 2. Now these are good if you have multiple sites. These solutions are good if you have multiple sites. Now what happens is if you have remote users that are connected to the public network, like in this case I have a remote user that's connected to the public network, but there is no any edge device that which you can use, or no edge device or gateway or firewall that you can use to create a site to site VPN between that device and the headquarter edge device or gateway. So in that situation, we need to have some sort of another solution so that this user is able to access the internal network resources. So these remote users are being referred to as mobile users. In Checkpoint, they call it mobile users, and they may be using different types of operating systems. They may be using Android in their mobiles, or they may be using iOS, or in host PCs they may be using Mac OS or Windows. So they will be connected to the public network, and they will create a VPN tunnel from the remote user to the edge device or the gateway of my Checkpoint gateway of the headquarter, and then they will be able to access the internal network resources. And you can also have multiple solutions implemented at the same time. Like for instance, you may have different remote sites that you want to create a VPN session or tunnel between the headquarter and these remote sites, and maybe create a site to site, site to multi-site, or create a mesh community for those sites, and also provide these mobile users the VPN services as well. So the traffic between the remote user up to the security gateway would be encrypted using IPsec, and then the security gateway will decrypt those packets and forward it to the internal host or servers. So that is the general concept here. Now we have two main solutions to solve this problem. Number one is SSL VPN. This is also being referred to as a clientless VPN, clientless, or some call it SSL TLS VPN, where in this solution you will not be using any sort of an application or software in the mobile user device. So you will be using your web browser using the HTTP protocol, and create an SSL VPN session or tunnel between the edge device or the firewall or the gateway and the end user. However, in the second solution, which is the secure remote, and here you will need to install an application on the end user or remote user and connect to the security gateway or the edge device of your company, and then provide the credentials to log in and then benefit the internal network resources. So these are the two main solutions. Now in Checkpoint they call it secure remote, Cisco calls it VPN client, Fortinet calls it Forti client, and Palo Alto calls it Global Connect, but overall the function of all four are same. So let's go ahead and configure both of them, the SSL VPN and secure remote, on my CPHQ, the headquarter gateway. So I just have added the management server and the headquarter security gateway, and I just added the RA client as well, the remote access client, and I have not yet even added the security gateway to the my management server. So let's go ahead and smart console to the management server from this host PC, which is this PC right now. The address is 226 from this range, and then we will enable the mobile blade on the headquarter gateway. So let me clear the screen, and let's go and smart console to my management server. So the password is admin123. So I only have management server here. So let's go ahead and add my gateway. So it's CPHQ, and the address is 222. And the set key is test123. So I have three interfaces in my headquarter gateway, from 200 range, 10 range, and 192 range. So I will close this and finished. Let me also create an access rule and configure NAT for the internal users to be able to access the internet or public network. So I'll go to access security policies, create a new rule, and I will call this internet, and the source is I will create a new network object. Q network, let's say 11.0 and 24, and net and height net, and install it on the HQ. Okay, and destination is any, service is any, action is allow, accept, and log it. And let's go ahead and install this. Install. So let's wait for this installation to complete. So the installation is complete. Let's go to gateways and servers. So I will right click on the CPHQ gateway, and I will pull the interfaces here. So pull all my interfaces to be shown in their respective topologies, and then I will go to the general properties. So here I need to enable the IPsec for the secure remote IPsec VPN blade, and for the SSL VPN I need to enable the mobile access, and I also would like to integrate my checkpoint gateway, this CPHQ gateway, to the Active Directory. I will integrate that as well. So let's go ahead and check IPsec VPN and integrate it with the Active Directory. So I'll select the AD query next, and I will provide the domain details, motasm.com, and the credentials, it's administrator, and the password is test123. and the host name is of the domain controller is SRV connect. So it's successfully connected. Next, and finished. And I will check the mobile access blade. So here I have three options: web, mobile devices, and desktops and laptops. So if I only check the web, then only the SSL VPN using the browser would work. So I will go ahead and check them all because I would like to test both the SSL VPN and the secure remote. So I will check them all and click next. And this is the portal URL where the mobile access users, the remote users would be using their web browser to access to this URL and then provide the credentials, which is wrong in this case. And it's pointing basically to this address from this range. Instead, it should be from this range and this address, because my mobile users are connecting on this interface. So I need to change that. So I need to say it is 200 91 33 and it is 222. And if you have a certificate CS server inside your infrastructure, then you need to import that certificate here, and that certificate should also be issued to the remote access clients. So I will go in my case I do not have any CS server, so I'll say next. And here you can define if you have an internal application or a web server inside your infrastructure, you can define that. So in my case I have a XAMPP server installed on this Windows 10 client PC, and I have created a DNS host A record and pointed it to this address in my DNS server. So I will go ahead and provide the details of that application server. So I'll select custom web application, and the URL for that is http app.motasim.com, and display name let's say app server. And I do not have exchange server, so I'll uncheck this. If you had exchange server inside, so you provide the details of your exchange server there. So I'll say next, and it's asking me if I want to test the connectivity of my domain. So I'll go ahead and test it, because it will pull the Active Directory users and groups, which we can define next. So the test is successful, so I'll say next. And it's asking me if I want to test the application server, so I'll uncheck this. I don't need to test it right now. Next. So here it is asking me which users or groups are to be allowed to access the application. So you can select the Active Directory users, and as well as if you have created user objects here and user groups in the checkpoint, you can select that as well as internal users and groups. So if you click on add, you can see internal users and groups. If you I right now have not created any users or groups here, but if I had created, it would have shown here. So I'll go ahead and select motasim.com domain here, and my user. If you wanted to select any specific group, you can select that, but in this case I will go ahead and select the entire users container. So I'll say next, and here is the summary details and the login URL, the portal. So I'll go ahead and say finish and OK. So this is the web portal link. I'll say yes, and I'll go ahead and install this on the CPHQ, publish and install. I only have this gateway in this policy package, which is 222. Install. So let's wait for the installation to complete. Then we will go ahead and test it on my RA client, this one. So let me log in to this client. Let me check if my installation is complete. Yeah, it is complete. So I have created a user named Kamran in the Active Directory here in my domain controller, which I will use to test it here, and I'll try to log in using that user. So let me show you that user. SRV. Tools, Active Directory users and computers. And here I have Kamran user and a group, IT group, which I have added to the IT group, but I'll try to log in as Kamran user. So I will browse to this address, which is 222 https 291.33.222 slash SSL VPN. It's asking me, should I trust the certificate? I will say go ahead, continue, and I need to provide the credentials, the user details of Kamran, and the password is test123. So as you can see, I'm logged in now. Here is the home mail settings. If you want to change something, sign out, and if you wanted to change the credentials, you can change from here. Add something to your favorites, change your language here, and this is the user that I'm logged in, and I'm being given two links to two application or web servers, or two display names. One is the world clock and the other one is the application server. If I click on the application server, it timed out. I guess I have not started the XAMPP server. Let me check here on the Windows client 10 PC. So let me see if my XAMPP server application is running. So I will check. I'll go and open the XAMPP control panel. I think I have not started the service. Yeah, it is not started, so I'll go ahead and start it. Yeah, it does show me now green and these two ports available. So I'll go back and click again. So now here you can see I'm able to access the application server. So the traffic from the remote access user all the way to the security gateway is being encrypted. However, the security gateway would now decrypt the traffic and forward it to the application server. So that is one way of providing your internal resources to the outside or remote users. If you come to the smart console and security and gateways, so you have mobile access here. If you click on it, it will take you to the smart dashboard of the mobile access policy. If you click on it, you can edit the policy here, and you can add certificates, you can add new application or web server links. You can do a lot of things here from the smart dashboard. So you have a lot of options to tweak and edit here. So I'll come back to this in a moment. So if I click on policy, so I right now have only one policy, and the users of the Active Directory container has been selected here, and these are the applications and installed on this gateway. So what I'll do is I will add some more applications and web servers here. So what I have is I have XAMPP server installed on this web server as well, that resides in my DMZ, and I have Apache installed on this web server, which is the public web server, which is the domain is kamran.com, and I've created a host A record for both of them here in my Active Directory. So my client should be able to access them both. So what I will do is I will go ahead and create a new application. So here you can select if you are having web application or file share or Citrix or native application or web app, you can create that. So I'll go ahead and select web application. So the display name I want is, let's say this time, Kamran INC, let's say, and it is, let's say the URL is kamran.com, and I will create another one. I think it is let me check TSRV, what are the records. So for Kamran, I have Kamran, and I have pointing, yeah, so web www is pointed to the DMZ, and I have kamran.com pointing to 2. So I'll go back to the smart dashboard, and I'll create a new one web application for my DMZ as well. Let's say this is called, let's call it web server this time, and the URL for that is motasim.com this time. And let's go ahead and create a share link as well. I have a directory that's being shared here in Windows 10 client PC. So I will provide the details of that as well. So I will go to smart dashboard and add new file share, and the shared name is, let's say, sensitive files directory, and the path is 192.168.11.12, and the directory is, I guess, share. Okay, and I will save this, and I will need to install this on the gateway. All these changes, new changes, all install, publish and install. Install. Let me check if my XAMPP server is running, and the password is test123. I think I have not started it, the XAMPP server service here as well, so I will start it now. Terminal. So sudo octa lamp start test123. The service is running here. So let's go back to my RA client, remote access client now, and let's go ahead and go back, and now you can see I have application server, the Kamran, which is Apache 2, which is pointing here to this public web server. And if I click on the web server, which is this one, the address is 10.0.1.1 here, so I'm able to reach them all, and I have this sensitive file directory, shared directory, which is here. So I'll click on this as well. Let's test it, and it's asking me for the username and password of this client PC. So I'll provide the credentials here. So it is I think lab, and password, and okay. So I'm able now to see the shared directory that is in this PC, which is Windows 10, which is this directory, and I can see the files there, and I'm able to download them. Let's say I want to download this one, so continue. So I'm able to download it, and I'm able to, let's say, upload something, and I also am able to create new folders. So that is how you configure SSL VPN or clientless VPN, where you don't need any kind of application or software to be installed on the remote access users or devices. You just need your browser to be able to connect to the edge of your device and then be able to access the internal network resources. So let's go ahead and test the other option, which is where we need to install an application on the end user or the remote access user. So I already have downloaded the remote access, the Checkpoint remote access application, the remote secure, which I will install on the client PC here. But for the remote secure, we need to bring some changes to the HQ gateway, the security gateway here. So let me go to the Smart Console. So let's go ahead this time, instead of using the Active Directory users, let's create user objects here in my Checkpoint, and then we use those users to be able to access the internal network resources. So let me go ahead and create a new user object. So let's go ahead and create a user. The template is default. Okay, and let's create a Khadija, let's say my daughter, and no email and nothing. Let's go and give it you know, all of these, if you are using one-time password, radius or TACX or OS user. So what I will do is I will use the checkpoint password, which I will define here. So set password, and it's, let's say, test123, test123. Okay, so I don't want to change anything else. You can change the allowed locations or destinations if you have defined locations or location objects here, and time and certificate if you have any, and IKE version, which one do you use. And if you want to edit the details of the IKE, you can come and change the authentication and encryption here. So I don't want to change this, so I'll say okay. And let me also create a group. Let's create a user group. Let's call this finance users, and add. So I have only one user right now. The other one is the admin user, which is the OS user, the Gaia OS user. So I won't check that. Okay, and I'll go to the access control and policy here. So I'll create a new rule above the cleanup, and I'll call this VPN or remote users. And for the source, I'll select the @legacy users. So I'll select the finance users. Okay, and for the destination, I can leave it any, because if I leave it any, then the user would be able to access the DMZ network, which is in 10 range, and also be able to access this as well. But if I only add 11.0 subnet here, so she would only be able to access the internal resources that is in this subnet. So I'll leave it as any right now, and any service and application, and I'll select accept here, and I'll log it. And I also need to add the VPN column here, and I will need to define right click specific VPNs. So I by default have only one remote access VPN community, so I'll select that, and I'll go ahead and install this. Add, publish, and install. And I will install this on the gateway. So if you wanted to bring changes to the community, VPN community, right now we have two default. One is the my intranet, which is used for meshed purposes, and the other one is the remote access. So from the previous session, you should be knowing that what are the difference between these two. If you wanted to create new one, you can create a new here. So if you right click and edit this, so this is the participant gateway right now, and in the participant users, you can define which users or groups should be able to access this remote access VPN community. So by default, it is all users. If you want to change this to the specific only that specific group, you can select that. So I'll leave it as default. And I also need to define that on which interface should this gateway, the CPHQ, be listening for the remote secure or VPN clients. So it is this interface, so I need to define this interface. So let's go to the gateways and servers, right click on the CPHQ. Let me close this smart dashboard. So I'll edit, and we need to come to the IPsec VPN and link selection. So it's by default selected main, so I'll select the interface on which VPN client requests would come. So I'll select this interface, and I also need to define the DNS address in the pool that is automatically created for the clients. So we need to click on the VPN clients and office mode. So this address pool is automatically created. We can create new address pools and define them here as well in the network objects. So what I would do is I will click on the optional parameters, and I will click the primary DNS. So you can create a host object for your DNS server, and then so I already have this SRV host object for my Active Directory DNS and web server, this IP address which is 10. I already have that object created, so I'll go ahead and select that and OK. And OK, because when VPN clients connect to this gateway, they will get an IP address from this range which is defined here. So normally it is created from the class B range 172.16, and you can create new ones or you can modify the existing one. And for the optional parameters like DNS, WIN server, so you need to manually come and define your primary and secondary DNS servers. So I'll say OK, and let's go ahead, install this, and then go to the client PC, and we do the installation of the remote secure application here. So I already have downloaded the remote secure application in this client, and let's go ahead and install that. So let me go and install that application. So I already have downloaded the 84.40 version. So I'll double click and next. So it's giving me three options: endpoint security, VPN, checkpoint for mobiles, and secure remote for basic ones. So I'll go with the recommended one and next, and I'll need to accept the agreement license and install. Yes. So it's also creating a virtual network adapter for me. So if I go to let me also ping them once we are connected. Finished. And if I open so right now you can see that a checkpoint has created this virtual network adapter. So right now it's not configured. If you double click on it, it will ask you that no site has been yet configured. Do you want to configure a new site? So I'll say yes. Next. What is the address, IP address? So it's 291.33.222, and the display name, let's call it Motasim, let's say HQ. And next. So it will create a new site for me, and then we need to provide the credentials of the users. So there is a default standard login option. So I'll say next, and now here it's asking me that which option do you want to go with. Will you provide the credential as username and password to log in to connect, or if you are having certificate, you can use certificate, or if you are using RSA for one-time password, you can select that. So in this case, I will go ahead with the username and password. Next and finished, and it's asking me, would you like to connect? So I'd say yes, and the user that we created was Khadija, and the password was test123, and the site you need to select here. So by default right now I have Motasim HQ. If you have other sites, they will be shown here and if you want to create a new one, you can create a new one for other sites. So I'll connect. So my connection has succeeded. So right now, if I come here, if I say ipconfig, I should have received, yeah. So I'm receiving an IP address for the virtual network adapter as 172.16 in 10 range. So sometimes it is 1, sometimes 2, sometimes 3, sometimes but overall it's in 172 range. You can modify that, or you can create your own pool. And if I say ipconfig/all, I should have received that DNS address as well here, which is this DNS address, and on the checkpoint virtual network adapter. And now if we go and try to ping, let's go ahead and ping my DNS server. So it's 11.10. So I'm able to reach my Active Directory and DNS and web server, this one. And if I try to ping the host, the client PC, Windows 10, I should be able to reach there as well. If I now try to, I don't need any SSL connection now. So if I try to access the application server, I should be able to connect to the application server. And if I try to access these two web servers, I should also be able. It was www.motasm.com. I'm able to connect there as well. And the other one was kamran.com, where we had Apache here installed and XAMPP installed here, which has an IP address of in this range, and this one has an address of in this range, and this one has an address of 12 in this range. So I'm able to access all three application and web servers. And we can also check that my SSL VPN is also working. So I am connected using the remote secure, but I also want to check for, I don't have any other client PC here to check. So I will use the same PC to check the SSL VPN as well. So it's 291.33 and 222 SSL VPN. You can modify this URL as well. So I should also be able to connect using the clientless option too. So continue, and let's log in as Kamran and test 1 2 3. So you can see I'm able to log in using the SSL VPN option and remote secure, and I'm able to browse and access to my application web servers and file shares and others. So let's go and let me sign out. So let's go ahead and check some logs, and if we have received some logs here, let's go to the logs and monitor. Let me refresh this. So here you can see that I have some decryption going on the VPN blade and user Khadija, and I also have a Kamran user which recently logged out as an action on the mobile access. And if you double click on it for further details, you can see the origin was this, and blade and product family, the session and source was this address, which is public range of 150. The client IP address is 150. The public IP address of the remote access client is 150 in this range. So and the user name was Kamran. The common name is Kamran. The domain component is users and motasam and .com, domain component.com. So the action was logged out, and this one was decrypt the action origin and other details, VPN details. This was the address, VPN IK. It performed the triple days ESP SHA as the encryption, authentication, and hash. And the source was this user destination address, and the service was UDP for the name resolution 53. So the action was decrypt, and net was also being performed here, because for the pool that is created in the network object here, this pool which has which I told you about, this network range, sorry, pool. So net is by default checked here. I have not checked this, so it's automatically checked, because the outsider, when traffic comes from outside, so, and if it wants to communicate inside, it needs to be translated to this address range, because the public range is from this range and the VPN range is from 172.16, and this guy is doing the encryption, decryption, and NAT and routing. So this will have to NAT from 172 to this range and then forward it to the internal users. So that is how you generally configure SSL VPN and remote secure in checkpoint firewalls and gateways. So let's go to the security policies, and let me click on the mobile access and open the smart dashboard for the mobile access, so I can give you some more information on this policy, etc. So let's start from overview. So here you can see that my organization has only one gateway that has the mobile access blade installed, and all three web, mobile, and desktop features are enabled, and the authentication method has been selected as username and password. And here you can see the total 5 applications that are configured under web applications and files applications. So the others are 0, none has been configured there. So it is showing me right now the active sessions. So right now there is I think one session that is going on, and you can see the object lists of your management server here, and the identity awareness. Right now I have this gateway that is integrated with the Active Directory, so ed query. Next is a policy. So right now I have only one policy rule that's created. So these users are allowed to access these applications and on this gateway. And if you wanted to create a new rule, you can create a new rule, let's say above or below. Then you would need to define the users, the applications, and install on and comment it. So you can do that. So if you wanted to add new users to also be able to access these applications, you can add them here. So I will delete this rule, and on the gateways right now it should show me only one gateway that has these 3 features installed on. If you had other gateways that had the mobile access blade active, so they would also be shown here, and you can also add the applications from here as well. So right now if you click at the web applications, I have these 4 configured. If you wanted to create new, you can create it from here, or we create it from here directly as well. So it's same if you create it from here. So I just said new there. You can also create it from the application here, and if you want to create file shares, I created one which was for my Windows 10 client PC, the shared directory. So you can say new, and then you need to define provide the name, the location, etc., the file location and the address, etc. Then it will create another one. And for the authentication, so we basically configured the username and password as an option, this one. But if you want to, if you have a TACX server or Radius server, then you need to create a new. Let's say maybe you are having a Cisco IS configured in your infrastructure, then you need to come and add, let's say, Radius. Or if you're using CS server, you need to add that. Or if you're using remote access dial-in user, or maybe some other or Microsoft Radius server, then you need to provide the IP address details here. You need to create a host object for that, and then need to provide the username and password to be able to connect to the Radius server, and then the users that resides at the Radius server would be able to connect. So that is the authentication. If you're using certificates instead of users, then you can also need to create certificates here and then use those certificates. So the portal customization we will do, we will modify this in the, we will check this in the properties of the gateways here, because if I try to customize it from here, I would not be able. So if I right click and edit, it will take me to the properties of the gateway. So I am not able to modify here. We can modify it from there, but we can create new portals here as well. And these are some additional options. You can check them. And here I can check the network objects, the service objects, the resources, maybe the users here. And I have like the gateway and management server as the checkpoint devices and nodes. I have these. So these are just the objects that we can see here. Same objects are shown there in the smart dashboard. So that is for the checkpoint smart dashboard for mobile access blade. So let's go to the properties of the gateway, edit. So I need to close this. So I will edit. And here if you click the VPN clients, you can check and uncheck those three services that mobile blade offers, the desktop and laptops. For the Windows and Mac, that uses the remote secure application. Or if you want to uncheck the mobile devices that uses iOS or Android or the SSL VPN, you can check and uncheck them here. And the authentication method, we used the username and password. So if you are using Radius, so you can come here in the settings and you can add a Radius server, maybe let's say Radius, and then provide the IP address. You can also add it from here. You need to provide the username and password for that. And in the office mode, you can, the main thing that you can change here is the IP pool. If you have a range that you manually create as the network range in the network objects, you can select it here. So I have not created any, but if instead you're saying that don't use from this pool, I have a DHCP server inside my network, so assign IP addresses to the VPN clients or the remote secure clients from this range, then you need to define the IP address of the DHCP server here. And optional parameters, I did told you about this. And you can also perform the anti-spoofing feature here as well for the VPN clients. So if something is coming, you have selected 172.16.10 subnet here, that is from this pool, and if something comes from another range, then it will block that. And the next one is remote access. So I need to go back and change it back to the pool. And remote access, here you can check if you are using L2TP layer 2 tunneling protocol as a feature from Microsoft. If you're using that, you can select that feature to be supported. And if your traffic is going through this gateway for other VPN devices inside your infrastructure, you can use this device, this CPHQ, as a hub device to route traffic for those gateways. You can check this. You need to check this so that the VPN traffic would go through it now. And this is the net traversal support. You can check and uncheck this. And the next one is mobile access. So the difference between these two, mobile access and the VPN clients, is that these guys here you use the remote secure application, but this is for the mobiles, the iOS and Android or mobile users that uses SSL VPN using browser. So you can check and uncheck those services here. You can add authentication services here that we explained here. And the office mode, once again, And in the portal customization, you can customize your title when you use your browser to SSL to connect using SSL VPN. You can modify the name here, or if you're using a logo of your company, you can change your logo here as well. You can add or the default language which we selected in the web browser of the client PC. You can change the default language here as well. So when they try to connect, they automatically would be using, let's say, Bulgarian language instead of, let's say, English. So I'll go back to English. And you can also redirect them to another logo if you are having in your company. You can also redirect to another URL. And here you can modify the portal settings. So right now by default I set this being the main URL. If you are using if you create aliases, then you need to create a host record in your DNS server as well. So let's say if you say instead of here they should be connected to SSL VPN.motasim.com, then what you need to do is you need to create a host A record for the users to be, for this to be resolvable as well, pointing to this address. So you can create an alias here as well, and here you can once again add a certificate instead of, because this is using HTTPS an untrusted certificate. So if you're using certificate, then you can import, you need to import a certificate here. So I think I do not have any certificate right now, but if you have any certificate, you need to import it on both ends, then they would be able to trust that certificate. So the interfaces that this URL will be, this main link URL will be available on is through all interfaces. If you wanna go and say no, only make it available to the DMG interfaces, then, or maybe VPN encrypted interfaces, then you need to come and check and uncheck it here. And here you can edit your SSL client and your HTTP and HTTPS proxy. If, let's say, in case you're having a caching server inside your infrastructure, or if maybe you are using URL filtering, let's say maybe you are using some Cisco WSA web security appliance here, and you want all the VPN clients, once they are connected, they should be forwarded to that proxy server, proxy device for URL filtering, maybe, or caching, or any other policy that you may have, or if you are using WebSense. So you can configure your proxy details here. So in the name resolution, you can add your DNS and VINs for the mobile devices. Here you can tweak some link translation, maybe checkpoint secure, and some other tweakings you can do here. So that is how you configure SSL VPN or clientless VPN and remote secure using an application. Thank you.